I wanted to welcome everyone to our second conference for 2018 here at the beautiful Stamford Hotel. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is our privilege to have you as our guests for a fun-filled and informative evening with our Senior Vice President, Lawrence Parker-Brown. Lawrence is someone that we're incredibly proud of. He has a master's degree from Oxford University in the UK in the disciplines of philosophy, politics and economics. Now, Lawrence has an intimate knowledge of global markets, and this has seen Lawrence invited to appear on numerous TV shows, radio programs and regular appearances on Sky News. Now, this positions Lawrence very well to deliver in-depth insights on issues and topics relevant to investors Australia-wide. I trust you've all discovered your Kadari bags with your reports and your copy of the Kadari magazine. Now, I'm sure you'll enjoy the read and appreciate the hard work and expertise that has gone into the creation of this literature. Now, whether you are a committed or just a curious investor, what we offer has something to do with all the different types of investing. Now, I know that this information will be an immediate benefit for you whilst you navigate the ASX and the opportunities it presents. Now, I have the great honour of introducing Lawrence tonight. Now, the evening with a special thank you from our team at KOSEC and our CEO and founder, Michael Kadari. Now, of course, our keynote speaker for the event, let me make way on the main stage for our Senior Vice President, Lawrence Parker-Brown. Thank you.
All right, thank you everyone for coming. The goal is that we can have a vision of how we will proceed and a few sort of key tenets throughout the evening. First spot prize. Ignore the chap on the right. Who's that devilishly handsome individual on the left? Does anyone know? Oh, I wish it was. I don't look like that even under a good bit of makeup. There is a prize, if anyone knows. Now, that is him at West Point, if that gives you a clue, and I think the year is about 1911, but I could be wrong. Any thoughts? I wish it was. So this is Eisenhower as a young man, and interwar, Eisenhower's job in the Philippines was to prepare reports for MacArthur. And he would draw upon everything that was happening politically, in terms of the economic situation in the region, in terms of the military. So his challenge was to draw all of that fascinating material into something coherent and fun. And so there will be three guiding principles that will try, and I'll invoke the spirit of Dwight Eisenhower, I hope, tonight. Three things that I hope we can achieve. Number one, 3 I's, I hope we can be interesting. Because everything we're discussing is of itself interesting. So if you're not interested, it's my fault. The concepts that we'll cover, smarter people than I spend their whole lives researching, writing, debating. And there are businesses with engineers, doctors, philosophers, marketing professionals that work Monday to Friday trying to execute on these opportunities. We also hope we can be informal. You're in a beautiful venue, but it only matters if you have fun. So you're here, there is complimentary food and drink, and on the drink front, it can get warm in here, so do wave if you would like a red wine, white wine, beer, sparkling water. It's our chance to leap on it. So we have team members at the back. James, for example, is chiseled jaw. He will get you any drink you want. It's a free bar, so he's very generous tonight. And finally, 3rd I for the evening, I hope we can be impactful and help you, because I hope tonight's a standalone event, like an All Black, a Wallaby. I think you've got to leave it all out there. This might be the only evening we have the privilege of talking to you, so I hope we can cover things in such a way that you remember it 20 years from now. What a challenge. What we want to talk about are, I've got excited and gone too quickly, the big issues of the year and how we can harness them to hopefully have fun, be stimulated, but even make some money. What has been the number one talking point of the year thus far? What has had us on the edge of our seats, switching on to Sky News Business, Sky News? I think for a lot of people, it's been the Royal Commission. Invoking the spirit of Bobby Kennedy and Jimmy Hoffa, we've seen Rowena Orr and her team and the Hayne Commission really grilling different employees, personnel from the financial services industry. It's been fascinating. At times it's been intimidating. I think it's been great for the country to really delve into what's happened. Kenneth Hayne and his team have tried to have a really anecdotal approach, looking at key case studies, people that have lost their savings, people that have invested in a business, a small enterprise, and they are wishing perhaps that they hadn't done so. There are also terrible stories about customers that are no longer with the world being charged fees. There are examples of institutions knowing that they have created misdemeanors, lying to the regulatory bodies about what they knew and when. So there are serious and grave issues at stake. I think it shows you a number of things. Number one, whether you're a large, medium, or small enterprise, unlawful or disappointing conduct can take place. It could be because you're small and you don't have the resources. It could be because you're so large that there's disconnection between the compliance teams and those in sales. Those mistakes will happen. I think we've learned immediately that institutions are not very good at governing themselves. You also, I think, realize that there is a public appetite for scrutiny. That could be towards financial services, it could be towards education, it could be towards a number of industries, including agriculture, energy, and so forth. I think one thing that's come out of the Royal Commission is we need more Royal Commissions, and I'm happy to be in any. It has created investor skepticism about some of the conduct of these institutions. So there has been suffering in terms of shareholders. Share values for the major banks, for example, CBA, have lost around 15% calendar year. So there are businesses that are not enjoying this process. They are likely to incur higher legal fees as they look into what exactly has happened. They will have higher compliance costs. Compliance staff are very expensive to hire of a good quality. And they will probably find that if there's more scrutiny as to what they're doing, there could be a revenue impact. Wherever there's a loser, there's possibly a winner. So whenever there's an environment where someone's struggling, someone else might be there to pick up the slack. So the Royal Commission is ongoing. Kenneth Hayne and his team have until February to submit their report. It will probably lead to political discussion about ASIC being stronger and other regulatory bodies. The businesses that stand to win are potentially other names in financial services that are not the big four banks and not AMP. So the theme of tonight is a concept that could be debated for 100 years, but will, in a snapshot, give you a couple of ideas for investments. Our loser of the Royal Commission is AMP. AMP will probably need to restructure. You are no doubt aware that there have been changes with the CEO, no longer in post, and Catherine Brenner, the chairwoman, no longer being able to hold that position. So there is change at the top of AMP. A lot of people would say when you see a well-established top 20 business with a share price that's coming under some pressure, is that an opportunity? I'd be cautious because I think you need to turn that business around. They might even split up some of the assets. Some of them will be more profitable than others. The sum of the parts appears to be less as a single conglomerate. So AMP has come under selling pressure. It is our general advice that that could be a continuing saga, and even a change in terms of leadership might not stem the bleeding. So AMP, we believe, is a loser in this environment, and the winner. So Challenger is a business that we also touched on in February. Challenger Financial provide funds management services, but also an annuities product, the most popular annuities product in this country. And their growth in Japan, the Japanese aging population has considerable demand for annuities. And if they can crack that market, I think they've doubled their footprint in Japan in the last sort of 6 to 12 months. If that can continue, it augurs well. So a business that we feel could be more valuable in 12 months' time from now is Challenger. A business that we feel could be less valuable is AMP. It would take something structurally different in AMP for us to feel that there is a different investment hypothesis. For everyone that's hopefully jotting all this down, this is a standalone event, and if you want to invest in these businesses, you can do, even on your smartphone. From when we started this project in February, the businesses we highlighted were up around 4%. The ASX was up around 0.5. So we 8 times were wiser than the rest of the aggregate market. So listen up, write them down. I'll give you a pen and paper later. Oh, getting excited again. Next topic that is worth an intellectual discussion. And if you're quick at reading, you know what I'm going to talk about. The United States, for a number of years, has a sizable trade deficit with China. It's even one of the sort of, from Michael Dobbs, that trade deficit exists for a number of reasons. It's partly to do with currency. It's partly to do with the growth of Chinese exports over the last 20 years. It's also partly to do with the fact that a lot of US exports are intellectual property. The big powerhouses aren't even allowed in China. Whenever you're faced with a sizable deficit, you might want to make a change. And the Trump administration are very keen to do that. If you're aware of Peter Navarro, the notion is that there is death by China for American commerce. To what end can this be resolved? Well, one tactic would be a currency manipulation to try and make the renminbi a little bit stronger and to sort of jawbone China into less of that easing. And another would be to strengthen the ties that exist and to try and create summits. Donald Trump, who is someone that's caught the world's attention by storm, has taken the view that he should be nice and calm, sanguine and relax and impose tariffs and create a trade war, which is great viewing for anyone that finds geopolitics boring, full of summits that go nowhere. What will happen next? It is a blockbuster movie. The trade wars may not precipitate as envisaged, but we have the entirely plausible hypothesis that steel, aluminium, and further items, including intellectual property that China has been alleged to pirate, will be under the world's attention. So America would like to see a slightly different version of free trade exist. Now, whether or not that is something that will eventuate quite as is outlined, it's, you know, the game theory of to what extent is this a bargaining chip, to what extent is this what Trump really wants. But as we're aware, the current environment is one where Trump doesn't want to see the deficit continue to widen. I'll show you the chart in a second, but let's have a look at the chart. Look at that widening deficit. If that's a bit like me and my waistline, you're kind of conscious that it's just getting worse. We need to do something. So can we increase the exports to, if you're America, US exports into China, and can we reduce the imports? Well, the Trump approach is to demand it. Now, in an environment where China is coerced into further spending from the United States, if you're gonna buy agricultural products from the US, maybe you don't need as much from Australia. So one potential loser in a trade war are some of our exports, as I'm sure Julie Bishop and her team are readily aware of. In this environment, you have to think about where the money will flow. So if agricultural goods will struggle, which Australian exports will benefit? Well, one business that, again, we highlighted in February that we feel could benefit from a US expansionary fiscal policy, from infrastructure spending, and is allegedly, if you will believe that Beijing and Washington can't resolve this, there could be the case that BlueScope Steel continue to be exempt from the impending tariffs. So if a trade war eventuates, and we'll all watch films about it in the future, our hypothesis to take away today is that the winner would be BlueScope Steel, with its large footprint, a large joint venture in the United States, and the suffering business, a business actually that on a stock-specific level has significant turnover in executive team, is an Australian agricultural company. We all have biases. I'll chip in mine as well. If there is less beef going anywhere, if there is less beef at all, I don't think it's that bad an idea. There you go. It's my lectern. I can preach how I want. So trade wars. That's obviously filling all the column inches. Are you making investments to benefit? Good question. Oh, crikey. That doesn't bode well. So I know exactly what we're talking about. Number 3, third topic that we think would be of interest to our audience is, and let me try and remember it, let's touch on property. One of the misconceptions, I think, if you are seen as stock analysts, is that you're not interested in the property market. That's misleading for 2 reasons. Well, probably for 100, but let's go for the salient 2. Number 1, a lot of Australian wealth is tied up in property. And if the property market is not doing so well, people feel poorer. They might also literally be poorer. Their wealth could have diminished. So a buoyant property market has a wealth effect that can lead to further borrowing, further spending. A second reason why looking at the wonderful ASX 200 every day is a privilege is because there are a lot of businesses whose income is generated from property. There are real estate investment trusts that allow you to get into lots of different vehicles, much more than the average layperson can in terms of their own budget capacity. I would struggle to have commercial property in Brisbane and then in Perth as well. You know, we can all save up, be very sensible with our money and get a nice little place in DY, but can we go and get a hotel chain? It's very difficult. Michael might, but the rest of us can't. So real estate is something worth considering. The price of real estate is influenced by several factors. Obviously, as with anything in economics, there is a supply issue and there is a demand issue. In terms of demand, things have changed in Australia from the preceding decade. One change is the amount of offshore money that can come into Australian property. Another change, influenced by the Royal Commission, is the bank's ability to lend and the average individual household's capacity to borrow. If it's harder to get an interest-only loan, there are fewer people that could potentially buy properties. And another concern would be in this market, we don't necessarily have the most buoyant of wage growth environments. People perhaps don't feel as rich as they did 5, 6, 7 years ago. In that environment where foreign buying is diminished and domestic buying is somewhat more tempered, there is this hypothesis that there will be less demand, therefore lower prices. And that can be a vicious cycle, because if someone is highly leveraged with multiple properties and they want to sell those properties, it can create a cascading effect where there is further selling. If you look at the evidence, obviously Australian property involves different regions of this wonderful country. It's hard to talk about it en masse. But in Sydney and Melbourne, where I spend most of my time, the house prices are not as buoyant across the board. There are obviously certain suburbs that differ from that. In this environment where property is struggling, where can our glorious audience potentially pick up an interesting opportunity or idea? Alongside me, this boy band here are research analysts that have worked very, very hard every day, but particularly today, and my heart goes out to them. Obviously, this was prepared and put together over several weeks. Elliot Trudgeon in particular made the point that one of the losers would be anyone with high leverage to the mortgage market. So mortgage choice was Elliot's pick for the business most likely to suffer in a housing market correction. And unfortunately, society, the ASX, has conspired against us. Mortgage choice are a franchise business where the franchisees are very challenged by their onerous sales targets. They are looking to cobble some money together and take potentially a class action towards mortgage choice. So the shelling of the share price was 21% on Monday. So if we had a time machine, we would have brought this forward or delayed them, or we'd have done something, because this now looks old hat, but we had this, I promise, a week ago. So the business we think will struggle, a lot of businesses will struggle in this environment, is mortgage choice. Being a shareholder of mortgage choice involves being a braver individual than me right now. Not hard. And the business that we think is the single biggest winner in a correction in the housing market is maybe something that's not so leveraged to residential property. Within real estate trusts, they are diversified. They hopefully have different income streams. The business we're going to showcase has a very strong link with Amazon in the US, international property holdings, so they tap into the potential growth of e-commerce. So the business that we feel is potentially undervalued is Goodman Group, a real estate trust. Oh, no, hang on, pay attention, Lawrence. Goodman Group, GMG, and Mortgage Choice. I think it's still going to have a difficult few weeks, notwithstanding a sizable selling and momentum over the last few weeks, the last week. So property obviously affects us all. It's something we analyze. The beauty of if you invest in equities is that you can, at a $500 minimum, get into something more diversified than you going out and buying a single property, which is at the whims of how that suburb and how that street fare over the next 20 years. You can settle quickly, you can have flexibility. So well done everyone behind shares. And obviously we can't claim to have invented shares, but it's a great way of getting exposure to the residential, to the commercial, any type of property. What else should we discuss today? We can talk about anything. I can even throw in a few mystery topics. Topic number 4, on the minds, I think, of everyone in society. This is going to be a bit of controversy, which I think is good on a Wednesday night. The Me Too movement. Now, I'm sure we've all seen some of the allegations that have come out. It's probably a good thing that people have the opportunity to air their concerns about the conduct of different individuals, particularly in the media and show business world. It would be worth noting that some of these people that are unhappy, and unhappy is obviously a euphemistic way of touching on what is obviously a serious topic, are of all genders. And if anyone watches Billions, my favorite character is definitely Taylor. So let's refer to, she's very, well, they, them, their. I get all my pronouns wrong, but those concerned are right to be, and they will obviously include boys, girls, and all gender denominations or controversies. So Me Too as a concept is rather like, I would argue, Ned Ludd. Now, Ned Ludd never existed, but in 1799, the story was that Ned Ludd destroyed a particular type of loom, and from 1811 to 1816, there was the Luddites movement. Now, to be a Luddite has had its meaning slightly shifted over the years. It now, I think, refers to people like me that get very confused by technology. But a Luddite at the time, they weren't anti-technology, they were worried about their jobs. The Me Too movement, I think, has morphed into being a broader discussion about all of the challenges, imbalances in gender throughout society. One of the big concerns for any institution is, how do you get the best talent? If I was a shareholder of any entity, I would want to know, I don't care about your prices, I don't care about your business model, who works for you? Because bots don't make much money. You need talent, and talent should not be lost or squandered or overlooked because of something that is out of their control. So culture is at the very heart of this. The Me Too movement is something that is here to stay. I think it's a good thing for everyone that has children in the audience. My young Charlie will probably be very passionate about this because it's a concern for all of society that we can get the best people in the best roles. Let's look at some of the statistics. I've got 2 for you. If you can't read at the back, I shall do my best reading of what is on a slide. 20% of the ASX 200 have no female executive leadership. So 1 in 5 businesses are all male at that top end of town in terms of remuneration, in terms of leadership of the entity. Now, if I was a shareholder, I might say, well, hang on a minute. Do you only pick tall people? Do you only pick overweight people? What is this arbitrary choice? Is this doing me the best value for my capital? Next statistic worth considering, that 40%, which is obviously less than half, but it's better, is only 16% of businesses. A concern. Which businesses are we aware of that are particularly successful in having executive female leadership? Do any businesses resonate amongst this room of smart people as having success in this area? Qantas, absolutely. Alan Joyce is a hero to us all, and he's done a wonderful job of making sure that the best talent is rewarded and retained at Qantas. So Qantas, 2 thumbs up if you're watching, Alan. Thanks for coming. Maybe next year. Who else? Let's have a guess. Can we get this right? Which businesses are leading the field? They deserve to be on Ellen.
Boost.
Boost?
Yes.
As in the juices?
Yeah.
Are they listed? I don't know. But I'm sure they are, and well done, Boost. Boost, well done if you're watching. The business that we're going to showcase is worth considering. A segue into the philosophy of buying shares. Quality is rarely cheap. It's the same as buying a house. It's the same as going to university. You rarely feel, what a bargain. I bought my house for $50. Wasn't it a good investment? And if you bought one for $50, you're pretty old. And that's true. Or it was, a tent in the middle of... Well, it's true. You rarely think something's cheap. Even when house prices were $3,000 or $50,000, that would have been a sizable amount of money to the people that were buying it in that era. They do oscillate in terms of income relative to someone's annual average income, but they are rarely cheap. Quality is rarely cheap. This business that we're going to showcase as a potential winner is not cheap right now by any estimation. But if you have traction in terms of market share, if you are a well-run asset with a USP or a degree of moat around your service or product, you have a fair chance of riding through and being more valuable in the long run. So my caveat is, don't think that this is cheap, and if it comes down tomorrow and you put your life savings, this was general advice. The business that we are showcasing as a winner is diametrically opposed in lots of ways to our loser. The two businesses are not Boost, but REA, realestate.com.au, and Domain. So well done, realestate.com. Well done. A business that has shown everyone in Australia how it can be done differently. So a female CEO, which is reasonably unusual in the top 100, and a business that has done exceedingly well. Could REA struggle in a property correction? That is one hypothesis. The logic, I think, though, is that if a property market is surging, people can become complacent and think that all they need to do is put it on the Instagram or put it on their Facebook. I'm selling my house. If a property market is struggling, you're probably going to put more dollars into listing, and listing with a premium type of exposure. So realestate.com.au, in our analyst view, I hope they'll agree with me, it could do well in a housing market correction. You might have to relist, and you might have to list with all the bells and whistles. So realestate.com.au is, in our view, a business that has done extremely well to harness female talent. Now, Domain, I hope we're not picking on poor Domain. Recent spin-out of Fairfax Media. They are a business that maybe need to take a leaf out of the REA book, if nothing else, in terms of market share. And we've seen that there are often allegations about cultures within an organization. That's one that maybe needs a little bit more Taylor. Obviously, she's an imaginary person in America. They probably couldn't pay her wages. But if she existed and if she was here, I think she'd be a very good consultant. Sorry, Taylor. Good, right, there we go. The World Cup. Number 5, a topic close to my heart. I very much hope everyone in this room will watch the World Cup. The World Cup is an opportunity to watch, as Mark Taylor said over the weekend on SBS, the world's game, the most popular sport by participation in the world. It is a fascinating game in the sense that it's over quickly, the score's easy to keep hold of, and there's generally a lot of emotion in it. So if you're not a soccer fan yet, it's like Prince, give it a chance and you'll be sold. The World Cup will be in Russia, and it starts, I think, on the 16th of June. There are 64 nations that are 32 nations, 64 games. It will be marvelous. And it will be an opportunity for a business that's not listed to maybe grab some more market share. Optus I have an Optus contract because they have the Premier League. Optus are showing every game. No one has Optus. It relies on internet, which is unreliable, thanks to the NBN. So it could be a disaster. The business that we hope will benefit the most, I pray that they do well, because I'll be spending far too much time in there, does anyone know who's going to be showing all the games? Tabcorp. Now Tabcorp, a bricks and mortar gambling operator, will be in their venues showing all of these games. And some of them are at 4 in the morning. So if you see me looking disheveled and confused, it will be because I have been hard at work watching Sweden, Nigeria, or whatever the game will be. Wonderful tournament. The suffering business, really we're just picking on them because we're mean and it was easy. Telstra have, as an asset, struggled for leadership and for vision over the last 5 years or so. The long-term holder of Telstra is often a disappointed beast. You would think that the scope, the resources of Telstra would mean that they're trying to bid for the Soccer World Cup or stream it, or heaven forbid, even show it on regular TV so that we can all enjoy it and sponsor it. Telstra are nowhere to be seen, like with a lot of things. So Telstra, we just don't like you. You've become a sort of a yield trap for hard-working families across Australia. They might turn it around, and good luck to them. Here's something fun for you as well. The Soccer World Cup will allow you to have a lot of markets about things that may or may not happen. Brazil are in the Soccer World Cup, and to my knowledge, they've never failed to get out the group. They're in a group that I think they will find reasonably easy, and the market has them to not qualify as a 5% chance. So if you put $100,000 on Brazil to qualify from their group, you'll get 5 back. I think that's decent value, but I'm not licensed to tell you that. I just say that as someone that likes you and wants you to enjoy the World Cup. Australia are in with France and Peru, so they're very good teams. I think, and you can have me on record, this is on YouTube, I think France will win it. So that's my pick. What do we think, Paul?
France. Germany.
Germany. Anyone else?
Definitely Germany.
Definitely Germany, says the German in the back. We will have this for posterity, and if you're right, I will personally shake your hand. Good. The World Cup will be fun, and if you watch it, enjoy it. Let's move on. Next topic. One business or t'other will be part of your daily lives. We live in an environment where the powerhouses of US tech impact us all. Not necessarily all 5 of them, but I'd be amazed in here if someone either doesn't have an iPhone, has never subscribed to Amazon, doesn't have a Facebook account, or has never used Microsoft. And you've almost certainly interacted with Alphabet. Alphabet is the holding company of Google. These businesses impact our lives in many, many ways. They mine our data with our permission constantly. We seem very happy to tell them everything we're doing all of the time, which, good luck to them for remembering. Most of what I have to say is pretty dull, but they like to catalogue it forever. Now it's interesting, we talk about bricks and mortar businesses and tech businesses. I think it's more of a mindset concern than a location. Because if you look at Amazon, they're trying to have physical stores. Apple have very successful physical stores. The issue is not having shop fronts. I think the issue is this. Over the last 50 years, successful entities in retailing, in terms of, say, Facebook with job search and so forth, they took hard copy data from us and forgot about it and filed it away and lost it and never cared. That data about who you are, what you buy, when you buy it, is valuable. And the businesses that have suffered have ignored it, and the businesses that are doing incredibly well have done very well by keeping your data and applying different ways to generate revenue from it. The big concern will be for the next 10 years how you regulate these powerful entities, because they now have the resources, the influence and the clout to say, well, we don't want to pay GST, we're in America. And that you can have a falling out based on that. Google are in discussions with the EU about all sorts of privacy. So the tech giants will need regulating. Because as we've seen with the Facebook scandal that came to pass, there could be big ethical concerns about certain businesses knowing everything about society, more than the government, it would appear. So one hypothesis is from 2018 onwards, on a national level, on a regional level, we're likely to see tech regulation, laws about what Facebook and Google can and can't do. That will probably, in the short run, affect these businesses. The businesses that are already losing in this environment have that bricks and mortar mentality. Who's got a bricks and mortar mentality that we're all familiar with? Who's our loser of the day? Poor old Maya. Bless him, the powerhouse of 1990. A struggling business because even though they've got wonderful distribution of centres, they're pretty depressing, aren't they? And I don't think they've used the opportunity to collect data wisely. The business that we think could win in this environment is probably the least well known that we'll showcase today. Appen is an Australian tech thoroughbred and local success story. Appen work with the tech giants to provide language and artificial intelligence services. That is the buzzword sort of double whammy for 2018, but they're only going to grow in demand. You're only going to want more and more intelligence the more you're generating. You're only going to want more and more stability. And blending all the languages into one coherent experience for clients is only going to grow in popularity. The interesting thing as well is if you are the provider of a service to these guys, if any one of them has a wobble, if Facebook becomes toxic as a brand, potentially, you know, MySpace came and went, whoever picks up that social media mantle will probably still want Appen services. So Appen, APX, is a business that's done very well this year. I think we showcased it in February. We still, for a bit of consistency's sake, feel it has legs to run. Poor old Maya, like the Telstras, like AMP, bricks and mortar mentality is potentially suffering. That is not to say that they can't turn it around, but I want to see some evidence that they can do something special. If anyone is warm, if you see anyone with a pocket square, they will get you a drink, including people with pocket squares. All right. The tech giants are American businesses. They obviously have footholds all around the world, and a contentious issue about where they should and shouldn't pay tax. They are impacted by the US dollar. The US dollar has had, in the last 2 years, a bit of a tough time of things. And the notion that it's the world reserve currency is under pressure, particularly from Beijing, which we'll come to. The renminbi is an alternative, and there will be increasingly trade negotiations between the likes of Iran and India and China, which might circumvent the need to ever buy the US dollar. But the US dollar is fighting back, and it's had a good run over the last few weeks for a number of factors. The strong non-farms payroll data reiterates the notion that the US is in a growth cycle. This is an economy that is adding jobs, it's got some degree of inflation, and Jay Powell at the Fed feels empowered to look for 4 rate hikes. So we now have, for the first time in a while, a higher federal funds rate than we have here in Australia. The emergency measures post-GFC appear to be eased and no longer on the horizon. In this environment, if the US dollar catches a bid, as it has done, Australian businesses that earn in the US, we think, will do well. They will do well because when they repatriate their profits, they can do so with a cheaper Australian dollar. Lots of businesses earn well in the States. It is probably the market to earn well in. The business we want to showcase is not necessarily everyone's cup of tea. And the beauty of the market is like a wonderful hotel bar. You can choose what you drink. You can choose if you want to buy into this story. The story we're going to look at is a gambling operation, Aristocrat Leisure. Now, I have never understood those colourful machines that they have in Vegas and pokies, I believe they're called, in RSLs. They look far too clever for me. I don't understand how they work or how you win or what you do. And I'm too intimidated to say it at my 24th year of age, so I'll just let it pass me by. Who's laughing at that? So I will never understand how they work, and I'll miss out on all the fun. Are they harmless fun of adults entertaining themselves, or are they an addictive and negative influence on society that should be heavily regulated and taxed? That is a discussion that we all chip into, but we can't resolve here today. Aristocrat Leisure, if you want to use a pokey, is probably the manufacturer of that machine. And they earn well domestically, but they do even better in the States. So 65%, I believe, of their revenue generated in the US, and that could grow. And if it's growing in a low tax environment, in a strengthening economy, and they can repatriate it, we feel, it's our general advice, that Aristocrat Leisure below $30 is undervalued. And if you come back here to me in a year and I'm magically slim and France have won the World Cup, I think Aristocrat will be more valuable. And you can say, Lawrence, well done for losing weight. It won't happen. The business that we think will struggle is a gold miner called Newcrest. There are a number of businesses that will struggle in a strengthening dollar environment. And gold, obviously, is seen as a safe haven. If the US economy has a strong run, it's likely that money will flow towards buying the US dollar and saving in US financial institutions. I could see some diminishing of the demand for gold. Let's talk commodities. I hope we're having fun. By the way, I meant to say earlier, you can see some of the finest headwear this side of Donald Trump's forehead. Chris, can we wave that back? That masterpiece of fashion is available for anyone that asks a good question. The most traded commodity in the world is oil. Oil is used, as we know, industrially. It's obviously the main resource for making the fuel that we need for all of our transportation. Oil, since Eisenhower, we'll bring back Eisenhower, he's not just there because he's handsome. Since Eisenhower was the president, keeping low oil prices has been the primary goal of US foreign policy for 65 odd years. And they've done a reasonably good job at it, given that OPEC realized in yesteryear that if they get together and drive up the price, they all make more money. Well, why wouldn't you if you are a cartel? The challenge for the US is how to keep oil prices low, given that they have fewer and fewer friends in this resource. Russia are happy to join OPEC in cuts. Saudi Arabia want to change their economy completely and divest Aramco and use it to create a sovereign fund, the likes of which no country has ever created, and have a completely tertiary economy, well, not completely, but really transition towards that. So Saudi Arabia wants higher oil prices, OPEC wants higher oil prices, Russia wants higher oil prices. There are serious reasons to worry about supply, not least of all, tensions with Iran. When there are significant cuts to supply, the price will inevitably rise. So oil, it's back. We're like Jimmy Carter. A lot of the ideas come and go, wax and wane, but this is an old perennial. Oil is likely to be over that $80 a barrel mark. Saudi Arabia would like near 100. So if you're an oil producer, you might do very well. I don't want to produce oil, but with my $500, I wouldn't mind investing in an oil producer. So the best, in our view, at the moment, general advice, is our good friend Woodside Petroleum, WPL, and a business that would struggle with a stronger oil price, in our view, is Virgin Australia. Also because we like Alan Joyce and Qantas quite so much. They're so good. So oil is likely to move. And one notion, of course, is that commodities are likely to do reasonably well in this late cycle period. We will come to the big commodity concern in a second. We've talked about oil, we've talked about all of the big issues. What else would we like to know and discuss and analyze so that you can all be millionaires this time next year? Anything else on the nation's thoughts? Speak now. I'll be over soon.
Renewable energy?
Renewable energy, absolutely. I promise I will get to that. Good choice. I will get to that. China has a challenge with pollution. China, of course, over the last calendar year has seen Xi Jinping offer his services for perpetuity and changing their constitution. That is creating, if you believe in geopolitical tension and the idea of sort of being a multipolar world, Increasingly, you have Putin and now Xi Jinping that are capable of creating one harmonious position for many years to come. China is looking to pivot as an economy away from manufacturing for two reasons. One is it's going to be more and more expensive. Well, three. One is the wage issue. Wages in China need to come up to support their middle class. Another reason is because people want tertiary jobs. And the final reason, which is quite interesting, is the pollution in China, in many cities, is frighteningly a big issue. I've been in a place called Wuhan, which is off the beaten track. And I was driving, I wasn't driving, someone was driving me, because I don't have a license there. The visibility in the smog was like Dickensian sort of northwest England. It was about 8 yards. It was incredibly frightening. No one could see anything, so I hope we were driving slow enough that we didn't hit a cow or something. The pollution that can come from low quality coal and smelting and iron ore and all the industrial production that comes west of Beijing and is blown eastwards is such a major concern that they do sort of UN guides of air quality. China regularly has such terrible quality that they tell children to stay indoors. Schools are prohibited from letting the children run around and play in the yard. That is how bad air pollution has got in China. Now, obviously, China is an unusual economy in the sense that it's centrally managed and they can make decisions, but it's an entirely sensible decision to reduce their exposure to such pollution. Blue Sky Policy is their initiative. It is about transitioning to renewable energy sources. It's about coming away from so much heavy industrial production. In that environment, who will win and who will lose, and how can you, the discerning clientele, friends, VIPs, free bar lovers of this room, how can you benefit? Well, one business that could do well is Whitehaven Coal. Australian coal is cleaner in terms of its chemistry than most coal around the world. And the business we think that will struggle the most are some of these iron ore plays. Atlas Iron is one we wanted to showcase for you. If China is going to close down some of its steel factories, then there will be potentially less demand for iron ore. So a winner and a loser, make of this what you will. All of this has been lovingly researched. If you have a difficult question, my dear friends Paul, Elliot and Chris will chip in. We're about to come to the end. I naturally want to go longer, but I think we've had a fair run. Lithium. Lithium is the top question that everyone wants to ask about. I thought I'd save the best till last. Lithium-ion batteries are in considerable demand, not least of all from the electric car market. Electric cars are, by government decision and decree in China and in Europe, part of sustainable future horizon scanning. The challenge is that you need to mine the lithium at a cost-efficient level, and you need, if you are going to be buying this lithium, to turn it into a battery that is going to be efficient and not likely to burst open in flames, and also on an industrial scale practical. The biggest problem with a lithium battery is that to some extent it's a misnomer. Lithium is the main constituent, but lithium is actually, by its very nature, bordering on ubiquitous. It's not hard to find lithium. The magic source is manganese and cobalt. You need those to stabilize the batteries. Now, the way the world works is a wonderful, capricious planet we live on. A lot of cobalt, I'll call it cobalt, is in the Congo. And that is not a very stable environment in which to produce long, complicated engineering processes and contracts. Getting the cobalt out of the Congo is a minefield, quite potentially literally. So the big challenge for the likes of Tesla is how do you get a consistent supply of cobalt at an efficient level? Well, that is going to be the conundrum that Elon Musk, in his, I hope he has a Bond lair where he lives and strokes cats and so forth. He has a big challenge because lithium is not the problem. cobalt is. And Australia has lithium mining operations. It has lithium miners listed on the ASX 200. But lithium is likely to be oversupplied by the world because it's not rocket science to find lithium. I couldn't do it, but major mining operations in Chile, SQM and Albemarle in the States have too much lithium and they're going to flood the market. The issue is, can anyone get enough cobalt, or will we need to look for another type of battery? So it's been a captivating story. It's seen, and let's be fair, many investors have done very well, from the likes of Galaxy Resources, Orocobre, Kidman. Mineral Resources has a lithium component. They've done very well. Well done, Will.
Yes.
But would you invest in these businesses for the long haul? Say an Orocobre, it doesn't have the world's strongest balance sheet, and if it hasn't done well now in peak lithium craze, when I was half tempted to call Charlie lithium or manganese, if it can't make money now, what does the future hold? So the lithium battery story has driven us along potentially a cul-de-sac that's misleading. And if you're piling your life savings into lithium, again, you're a much braver soul than me. Our, therefore, concern is not if lithium is going to make money, it's if cobalt. And there's not enough cobalt in Australia, it's mainly in the Congo. Who can make money in this environment? Our argument, our hypothesis, our gift to you today is that it's mining services businesses that might do well in this environment. Mining services businesses have a track history of running the asset and trying to get a return on equity. You can look at the balance sheet, and it's more of a safe bet, I would argue. Now, I mentioned this in February. It didn't have the greatest run ever, but you've got longer to live in your life than just till April or May or June. Monadelphous is a mining services business with a long track history on the exchange, and Orocobre is a pretty much pure lithium play. Our winner in an environment where lithium stops being the story of the day, we had that with rare earth metals, our winner would be our friends Monadelphous. Our loser would be Galaxy, Orocobre, Kidman. So we've chosen Orocobre because we're being mean to them. All right. Act 2. Now, I'll wrap up. Our idea tonight has been to go through what most people are talking to us about that's interesting there. So we've touched on Trump, on Taylor from Billions, on lithium, on the Royal Commission, and I hope we've covered the main topics. I did say at the start, today was envisaged to be a standalone event. It could be that I never see you again. Not you, Logan. Come tomorrow. So I hope we've touched on ideas that would allow you to go away and make wise decisions. But you never know. You might just think, God, that Prince, isn't he good? I'm going to buy all his albums. And you might think, let's talk to these boys again, and girls, then. So let me give you a little offer, an impactful evening. Not only can you have lots of drinks and make great friends, I've always suspected that the theatre's the worst part of going to the theatre. Meeting people and having a gin and tonic in the interval's wonderful, but then you have to go and watch some more opera or whatever it is. Tonight's special is as follows. If you would like to be a gold member of our service and come into the office whenever you please, use our analysts. We have a concierge team that can book hotels and flights and so forth. If you would like quarterly lunches with me at Hungry Jack's, and if you would like to discuss anything and everything that's interesting about investing, I will give you today, only today, 6 more months so you can have all of this year and all of 2019, and we'll get slim together. And if you want the 2-year membership and there's no lunches, you can have 3 extra months. So that will take you to the end of the World Cup and France will win. Then a year more, and you can have 1 month extra. Now, to explain that service, you need to speak to someone with a pocket square. And Charles is an example of someone with a pocket square, and he's going to buy me a beer, so talk to Charles. That I will leave for your discerning decision making. Let's go to Q&A. Is there anything that I covered that wasn't clear or that you'd like to ask me? I have a microphone and I will use it for as long as you need. Any questions? Oh, lovely question. Crypto, I should have put it in really. Cryptocurrencies are potentially the most interesting tech story of our lifetime because, and I say this because once upon a time you needed physical currency, like notes, and they're lighter than coins. But increasingly, instead of having these items that you have to have a monetary committee work out how many you've issued, and we can do it digitally. And you could do it digitally as any entity. You might even do it as a sovereign entity. You might do it as, Qantas might do their loyalty points in a cryptocurrency. Because it's at its embryonic tech stage, I think investing in it is exciting but risky because it's like getting into DVDs when they were beginning or VHR and you're not sure which tech will prevail. It's a bit like the railways of Lancastrian England in the 1870s. Which would prevail and which will waste the money? I'm not sure. I would love to be Miss Marple, but they won't let me and I'm not good enough. I can't tell you what will happen in the future. So I think it will be something that will be here to stay. But if you were to put money into Ripple versus Bitcoin or anything else, I think there's so much still to go to do with traction, to do with quality of the tech. But life is funny, it can be arbitrary. I think certain things prevail because they have a good name. I am much more likely to try and go to Harvard than Yale. I just prefer the name. Yale could be much better, but I like the name. And I think that will happen, and it has happened throughout history, with certain engineering products. So crypto is not something that we sort of analyze to help people make money, but we're very interested in how it could be adopted by any tech entity. And I think if we're not talking about crypto in 10 years' time, something has happened that I didn't anticipate. Mr. Lynch.
The US North Korea summit on the 12th of June.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I hope it happens. I think Donald Trump is a wonderfully smart individual for claiming credit for things he's tangential to. I think Moon in the Republic of Korea has done the groundwork. Korea is still technically at war. It's a peninsula with an isolate language that should never have really been at war. And my family on my wife's side are Korean. So we're going to celebrate. And maybe little Charles will one day be the Prime Minister of a united Korea. I know people from the Republic of Korea, and they've always felt that those from the DPRK are their cousins and brothers and sisters, and I hope we can resolve it. The issue's obviously been strategic for a number of years, which is that China doesn't want a unified, US-loving country on its border. I think nowadays China's moving its borders. I think it's probably at peace with the fact that it doesn't have to worry anymore. So fingers crossed. And Donald Trump is the leading, if you like betting, the leading prediction for the Nobel Peace Prize this year. What a winner in the game of life. But he's maybe doing something Obama couldn't. So we all giggle at him, but good luck. Oh, I love questions. Get your cap, put it on. It's only $12. We'll sort it out later. Marvelous. I want one. All right. Questions have been my privilege. I will be at the bar, and you can ask me anything. And it's time now, as the warm-up act, to introduce the main event. We are privileged today to have a short discussion about a wonderful entity that I would like to learn a lot more. So I'd like to welcome to the stage, ladies and gentlemen, Virginia Judge.
Well, thank you very, very much. I feel very, very honoured indeed. Michael Kodari, the founder and CEO of this growing company with so much energy and passion and ideas, and such a good team. Lawrence Parker Brown, the Vice President, for that wonderful speech. Elizabeth Kodari and all your associates, ladies and gentlemen. I feel very honoured indeed to be invited here tonight to just talk for a few minutes. Be very brief because everyone's been sitting very patiently about what I'm doing. But what I want to say is that I'm terribly, terribly impressed that here you have a young company that's okay, they're creating jobs, they're investors and so forth, but they still have asked someone to come tonight to talk about putting back about philanthropy. This is the first time, and I've been working at this for 7 years, and I speak at many events, and before that, my previous career, I've invited many different sorts of opportunities to speak, but I'm just so impressed that you have that philanthropy as a part of your company's modus operandi. So congratulations. So I thought 2 minutes, a little video about where I work and what we do. Hope you enjoy it.
I'm at Children's Medical Research Institute, the home of Genes for Genes. Ever wondered what scientists really wear? Denim is preferred. And what are these fantastic scientists achieving with the help of genes? I'm new to the Institute, and I'm here with Maddie, and we're going to take a grand tour.
I'm so excited, let's get moving!
I build software, so I find lab work fascinating. Hi Sam, can you tell me a little bit about the work that you do? I understand you fix childhood genetic disease using gene therapy. That's a mouthful and hard to say.
It's actually harder to do.
What is a genetic disease and how do you fix it?
We're tool makers. Fixing genetic diseases means making tools to do surgery on a really, really small scale. Genes, or DNA, are like a recipe to make you, you. If there's a mistake in the DNA, the recipe doesn't work and you get a genetic disease. Like if you want to make a ginger cake and the recipe says finger cake instead. To fix it, we have to make tiny tools called vectors, which scan all the DNA in your body, go in and find the error, cut it out and replace it with the right letter. That changes the recipe back to what it's supposed to be. Thus, the genetic error is corrected.
Impressive.
We've got to keep moving!
So Maddie, welcome to ProCan. This is where I work. But I want to introduce you to one of the experts who can better explain how ProCan's really going to revolutionise the way that cancer's diagnosed and treatment planning.
For all cancers,
Even kids' cancers!
especially for kids. We're studying every type of cancer. It's the biggest project of its kind in the world. And we hope that when we get to the end of 7 years, that everyone will benefit. Kids, however, have it especially tough because every child's cancer is unique and a few are only found in kids. We don't know enough about them, but we will be able to draw on ProCan's information base using software that Brett here will design to help doctors make the best treatment decision the first time for every child.
How does the kids who genes help?
We rely on donations. None of this research would be fully funded without them.
Your donation on Genes for Genes Day or at any other time of year to Children's Medical Research Institute will make a big difference. You can help cure childhood diseases.
Any of you would like to come out and visit and actually get up into the labs and meet some of these amazing scientists, I can tell you it's an experience you'll never ever forget. And I'm very happy to organise a VIP tour and perhaps a boardroom lunch for any of you. Maybe we'll get a minibus or something and only need to come out for a couple of hours. I know you're probably frightfully busy, but I think that it would be informative and I think very moving. And we'd love to have you. So thank you so much for your time tonight. You're very honoured.
We've loved hosting all of the captains of industry, philosophers, cap wearers that are amongst us. The bar is very much free and the canapes need to be eaten, otherwise they will go to waste. Please do enjoy the rest of the evening. We are here for questions, photographs and prizes, and I hope Michael will like to say something.
Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to thank everyone else for coming. A lot of you are friends. A lot of you probably have seen our ads too many times and seen my face on the business channel. We are the most advertised firm in the history of this country. So we keep coming up with innovative ways to advertise and get business. Just like any great business, the financial services industry is the biggest industry in this country. So marketing is very important. And we spent a lot of money on marketing on a monthly basis. We do attract a lot of clientele. The idea behind what we do is to have the best level of service anyone can experience. So we are competing with the Goldman Sachs, the JP Morgans, the Macquaries, and the idea is how can we create the best level of service where we can offer an institutional level of service to a retail client. One key thing is to recruit the smartest people. So we've got Lawrence here. He's one of the cleverest chaps on the business channel, so you might have seen him on the business channel there. When it comes to business, especially investing, it's all about intellectual property. The smarter the people are working for you, the better ideas they come up with, you're more, the risk minimization tactics they use, you can actually generate more revenue. The idea of these conferences are to give you a better perspective of our economy, our financial environment, sort of give you ideas about businesses that you would otherwise miss. So they benefit people greatly. A lot of these businesses discussed are ones we invest in, and some that we actually sold out today as well, because we've gained over 10% in a 5 to 10 trading days. So one of the biggest questions in investing is, and I've studied this for 10 years, I've read every book on Warren Buffett, Benjamin Graham, Peter Lynch, number of traders. And the idea is, how do you pick a great business, but how do you know when to buy it, when to sell it? It's the multi-million-dollar question. And to solve that problem, what we do on a daily basis with these guys is to analyze the market, look at any articles that are written about any business, how do they affect the share price, look at any broker upgrade or downgrade, look at what institutionals think about the business, and technically look at the stock price and look at its momentum, relative strength index, Bollinger Bands, a lot of technical terms. So the idea behind it is, no matter what you do for a living, if you're a lawyer or a doctor or a successful business person, you might not get the time to watch the market, but we do. And the idea is we bring that message across to you through a phone call, through our reports, through our daily market wraps. And the idea is to help you out and give you an experience when it comes to investing. And hopefully in the next 10 years, we'll be offshore. Our aim is to be a large investment bank in Dubai, Monaco, Hong Kong, Singapore. So Australia's been the start, and we've captured a lot of market share, and hopefully you can come along with the journey, and we can see you 10 years time. And we might do a seminar in Dubai or Hong Kong or in America. So thank you very much for coming. Please have a drink. The idea behind this is for you guys to meet new people, like-minded investors, have a drink and mingle and enjoy yourself. Thank you.